The views and opinions expressed by the guests, listeners, and hosts of any program on WURD Radio do not necessarily reflect those of ownership, management, or advertisers of this station.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Chris Murray Report on WURD Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, we got a lot to talk about for the next 2 hours, and we're certainly going to get into it today. We're going to be talking NBA Finals, Fight Night, what else? Some Phillies, some Sixers, and anything you want to talk about today. We got a couple of guests. We got my man Joe Sandler. We're going to talk about boxing over the next few months and maybe the Olympics and whatnot. Is anybody, one sport that seems to have been downplayed in the Olympic sports, they got gymnastics and track. No one talks about boxing, when at one time boxing was just like that was the one event I always looked forward to watching the Olympics as I was growing up. So, we're going to be getting into a lot of things today. Let me see, about last night, I was at the Phillies, I covered the Phillies doubleheader last night, and man, I gotta tell you, for all you, I know baseball for some of y'all, a lot of y'all don't care about baseball, but I still do, and I still cover baseball, and the Phillies are embarking on the second half of the season beyond the All-Star break, and the Phillies are 45-45, and in the next 2 weeks, they got to win a bunch of series to convince management to either make a trade or make a move to keep the Phillies in the race. And yesterday was just, I don't know, Jordan. The first game, you felt optimistic. You're playing, first of all, you're playing a Miami Marlins team that's like 10 to 11 games below 500. And these are the series. You got to win these series. 5 out of the next 6 series the Phillies have to play are against teams that are below 500. And on that list also is a New York Yankees team that is beatable, that you can't, they're not world beaters, but you can beat them. But the problem the Phillies have is still relief pitching is a problem, even though Ranger Suarez, who came into the All-Star break having done a 7-out save, 2 innings, 7-out save, may have basically solidified the closer position, at least up to this point.
Right. But
the problem is that when you've given up a few runs in the game, you're down, so let's say the other team scores, you get 2 runs, 3 runs, they're up 3-0, 4-0 and all that. You take your starter out and you got men on base. The problem is that none of those relievers can put the fire out. And when your starter's in trouble like that and you get him out of the game, like last night, they were down 4-0, and then I think it was Sterling Marte hit a 3-run homer in last night's game and put the game away, 7-0. It was over. It was over at that point. And, okay, you might lose one game to a really not so good Miami Marlins team, but you got to win. You've got to win this series to stay in this race, because as Joe Girardi told me last night during the press conference, he was like, "Look, we got 2 weeks to figure out what we're going to do at the trade deadline, and we got 2 weeks to convince management that they're going to either make a move or start shipping guys out." And he didn't say that exactly, but that's the situation
like he was thinking and everything.
Say it again.
Just seemed like that's what he was thinking, like what he kind of just gave off.
Yeah, it was just that this team, and granted, it's a funny thing. I cover baseball. I'm not as into the geeky stats game as a lot of the people who cover the sport nowadays. I'm just kind of like wins, losses, RBIs, pitching, and all that other stuff. Very simple stuff about the game. And my thing with this team is that they're woefully inconsistent. They may perform well in one area in one game and poorly the next. And when you do that, you are a 500 team. You win one game one way, and then you lose another. And
then you somehow beat the Boston Red Sox, who pretty much has the best record in the AL East.
Yeah,
like the whole one series in that.
Yeah, the last series they beat a very good Red Sox team one series.
Yep, and then a Padres team a couple series back too.
Mm-hmm. They beat the Padres. They beat a very good Padres team. I think it was Cronenfield went for the cycle last night, and they got Tatis. And man, I think they beat the Nationals like 24-8. I mean, it was something ridiculous. It was something ridiculous like that. And I'm saying to myself, this team is maddening. I mean, I've seen a lot of Phillies teams. I've seen a lot of teams. There's some teams that like make you want to say, "Eat your hat." I wouldn't eat this hat, but the thing is. The thing is, there's some teams that drive you nuts in Philadelphia, and that's the one thing I've learned covering Philadelphia teams over the years. There are years when sometimes, like the Eagles or the Sixers, even the Flyers to a certain extent, there are some years that teams in this town will drive you nuts and get you blah, 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 blah. They will drive you nuts. Because it's like, dude, come on, man. You look like world beaters here, and the next thing you know, you can't play the game. And the thing that got me about this watching the Marlins, they have a second baseman. I love his name. His name is Jazz Chisholm. And this guy last night, I would have kept hitting the ball at him because this kid, I like him. He's probably one of the few African American kids playing baseball, but. In Major League Baseball, but man, when you feel your position, there was a couple of balls now that were hit to him in the shift when they shifted the infield over to the third base side, and there were a couple of balls. I'm like, he looked like a 6 or 7 year old kid that was afraid to field the ball. And I'm like, dude, you're in the major leagues. You gotta field. I'm not rooting for the Marlins, but I like to see good play.
Yeah, and
I like to see a guy play the game properly, and dude, you gotta charge that ball. You do. I'm like I said, I'm writing for this audience. I'm writing and broadcasting for our audience, but I always like to see when a lot of African American kids play. Although I will say this though, instead of me talking about African American players, I think we should start, embracing the Latino brothers, the brothers who look like us but speak Spanish. They're good players. I like those. I like those players, and I think that I understand we want to see more of our kids in the community playing baseball. But I like a lot. I like Fernando Tatis. I like Vlad Guerrero Jr. I like those players. The only difference between if Vlad Guerrero and me, Fernando Tatis Jr. were all hanging out somewhere in North Philadelphia, the cops would pull us over at a minute. So one would speak Spanish, I would speak English, or speak a version of English. But the thing is, I'll be like, what's the problem, officer? Is anything going on here? I had to break into that. What's the problem? I gotta break into that, right? So right. I'm just saying that we should embrace those guys. We should embrace them. They're brothers too. They're part of the diaspora. They are part of the diaspora. I don't know, a lot of times, and those guys bring a flavor. Those guys are no different. The people, the Dominican players from San Pedro de Macorís are no different than anybody playing street basketball in North Philadelphia, okay, or West Philadelphia. Or even some parts of South Philadelphia. No, they're not that much different. It's just that we play different sports. Their thing is baseball. They play it all year round. Our thing is basketball. And same thing, same circumstances. that those kids, that our kids and the kids in Dominican or Puerto Rico or Curacao, where Didi Gregorius and some of those players are from, they ball down there. I mean, and that's good. Embrace the Didi Gregorius and the team. Embrace Gene Segura. And, embrace Bryce Harper, too. They're Philly. They play. I mean, I still enjoy the sport. I don't believe, I'm probably one of the few black people in our community that I'll look at you straight and say, baseball is not boring to me. I love baseball. Baseball, I wish I could get a glove. I still have a glove. Now, next commercial break, I'm going to go get my glove. I'll put it on Facebook. I'll show you my glove. I still got a good glove. And I'm clamoring for anybody to put me on somebody's softball team. You can just put me at first base or right field. I just like to play. I love to play softball. I would love to do it. I can't run as fast as I used to, but, I love to play. So, okay, but let's talk about some things today. We got a lot of things. The Sixers, right now, Dame Lillard is offering, wants to be traded. And I heard that Philadelphia is on his list. And so let me ask you, Jordan, Dame Lillard a good fit for this town?
A pick and roll between him and Joel Embiid, that'd be lethal. That would be very dangerous.
Maybe in the finals next year.
Just talking about the pick and roll, it reminds me of Trae Young and John Collins. Like John Collins and Clint Capella, that's pretty lethal. So yeah, that's what it kind of reminds me of. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of I'm just hearing that he wants to request a trade, but then he comes out saying that the rumors weren't true. So I just really don't know what to believe.
Well, the thing is, the Sixers will have to give up a lot, though.
Yeah.
What would they give up?
That's kind of what I'm iffy about. If it means we have to give up Tyrese and Matisse, which I really don't want to give up both. If we have to give up one of them, I'll have to say Tyrese because I feel like it's kind of hard to replace Matisse Thybulle's defense.
Yeah, that's the thing I worry about. Yeah, you're right about that. You're absolutely right about that. I'm always concerned. I don't like giving away defense, not in the NBA. I don't like giving away defense because we got to keep guys from scoring. And I think earlier in that series that Doc Rivers inexplicably did not have Thibault on Trae Young. That's a mystery wrapped up in an enigma for me. Now, granted, because Doc Rivers like, well, Chris, problem is you don't know basketball like I do. He'll say something like that, but he'll say, but I understand that, because I don't know. I'm not gonna be arrogant and say I know all the X's and O's. The thing is, I'm not Dean Smith or what's his name, the guy that the Olympic team coach. Good Lord, why am I having a second? Remember one thing. See, when you get old, you can remember one thing and forget another. I'm not Greg Popovich. There it is. I had to let the mind flow with the heaven. You gotta let it flow a little bit. But I'm not Popovich, but I do understand that, sometimes you got to make adjustments. And if one thing is not working in a basketball game, I think that he should have put Thibault should have been on Trae Young in that, especially in that first game and that one stretch, because they let them go crazy. And it was just like, guys, you had no judgment. We got callers, actual callers. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, the numbers to reach today are 215-634-8065, 1-866-361-0900. And we got callers. We got Brother Joe from Germantown. As always, my first call of the day. Brother Joe, what's happening, man?
Hey, Brother Chris, and to your wonderful producer, young brother Joe, and y'all two good brothers, man. How y'all good brothers doing this hot Saturday? And maybe rainy Saturday later. How y'all doing?
I'm doing okay. Water.
Yep.
Water from the refrigerator, not outside.
I know that's right, Chris. I know that's right, Chris and Jordan. I'm with y'all on that, brothers. Let me say this. Hello to your wonderful wife, too, Brother Chris, sister Denise, and stuff like that. Chris, let me say this. I don't know where to begin. First, I guess I visit the baseball. I'm gonna say I told Jordan. I say my Richard Sherman comment for last on baseball. you know, your buddy Stephen A. Smith, he got himself in his mouth, got him in hot water. And you know, I'll be the last person to try to defend Stephen A. because he gets on my nerves because he acts like a coon sometimes. But I don't think he meant no harm. He actually told the truth. But you know, when you're a black man, you got to be careful. You know, he said about the Japanese superstar pitcher who might be winning MVP and Cy Young this year in the American League. The Japanese gentleman, I can't pronounce his name. His name is a tongue twister. The boy is a hell of a ball player.
Shahani. Yeah, Shahani.
Yep.
Shahani, yeah. And Stephen A. said that, you know, and I think Steve was trying to be Stephen A. Smith, the little rant. You know, he liked to be controversial, but he got him in hot water. He said, well, this guy can't be the face of baseball because he don't speak English. He has to use an interpreter, and that won't go too all over in America.
Yep, he did say
that. And I guess Stephen was trying to allude to white people, but and I think it's a pinch of the truth in what Stephen A. said and stuff. But like I said, I think he could have worded it better. You know what I mean? He could have said, well, he might have trouble having that crossover appeal as great a player as he is because he may not speak English. He may have. He said it that way, it wouldn't have been anything. But because he said it in the way, because you know how Stephen A. say things. You know, he always got to be. He got to put that shit in there. That actor sort of just trying to, you know, like in other words, Chris, if you made that same comment about Yohani and you put it in there, I don't think nobody would have said a word, Chris, because Stephen A.'s case, he has.
I'm not famous enough.
Well, nothing about being famous. I'm saying you was on that show and you said it. I think the way you worded it is what got people kind of under the collar. Because you know how Caucasian people are. They don't like it sometimes when a black man say things. And again, I'll be the last to defend Stephen A. Smith because Lord knows I get sick of his nonsense. The way to me sometimes he acts like a complete coming at Kendrick Perkins. They both act like coons a lot of times. So I'm not even trying to defend him.
Especially Kendrick.
I don't think he meant no racial animus, but I don't think he meant it that way. I mean, I'm just
well. Can I say something
sure,
about that though? I mean.
Sure.
My thing is when it comes down to, I don't like this, you know, I mean, the irony of what maybe Stephen A. said, this country is a melting pot. We have people with different languages, and we're a diverse population. I don't mind Shahani, the Japanese. I can't play. I got to go back and practice his first name. I don't mind him being, if he can do what he's doing, and improves the theory. Old man that I knew growing up used to talk to me about never understood why pitchers aren't good hitters because you would think they know all the pitches. This guy is like, I thought of this conversation I had with this older dude years ago at my godmother's house back in Baltimore back in the day. And I thought about that, and I like this guy. I love this guy because I mean, that's like a throwback to Babe Ruth, and probably a lot of the old Negro League ball players, especially guys like Bob Gibson was like a 300 hitter, I think at one point as a pitcher.
Hitting pitcher. Steve Kong was a good hitting pitcher. That's right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and so. I never understood, but then again, everything in sport is so specialized because I think, I never like to see a kid. If you have kids play Little League, first of all, if I had a son who played Little League, he would not play one position. He would not play one position. I think that if I were a pitcher coming up and I'm trying to make it to the major leagues today, I learned how to hit. Because if I can't make it as a pitcher, or if I'm down deep in the bullpen or something like that, make yourself useful to your team. If you can hit and put a bat on the ball and be a pinch hitter and all, I know that maybe the other parts. I know all my baseball beat writers will come down. Well, I don't know if that's possible, but my thing is, when you teach kids how to play the game, you got to learn. I think. Learning every aspect of the game, to me, is important.
Yeah, you want to be an all-around player.
In any sport, learning is a learning all aspects of the game.
Yep.
Right.
Now, y'all get no argument from me on that aspect, Chris. I couldn't agree with y'all brothers more, man. But Chris, let me say this real quick. I know you got other callers. On mother baseball question before I get to Richard Sherman is the Phillies. You know, I said the same thing because you must have been reading my mind, good brother Chris, because I said, why do the Phillies have so much trouble with the Marlins? That team is the Marlins could be one of the worst teams. I mean, even back when the Phillies was good with Ryan Howard and Jimmy Rowland when they was winning World Series and stuff, they always had trouble with the Marlins. They like a pain in the Phillies behind. And the ironic thing is, Chris and Jordan, the Phillies, you look at the record, they play the Marlins actually better down in Florida. They had trouble with them down there, but they said they beat them down in Florida more than they beat them in Philadelphia. It's like the Marlins get a Phillies fix when they come here to Philadelphia. I don't know what it is about the Marlins. They got like some kind of mastery over the Phillies, man. It just boggles my mind. I still can't figure that one out. I mean, you beat a good Red Sox team and the Padres team, like Jordan just said, and you come home and you get shut out in the second game by the lowly Miami Marlins. It just boggles the mind. I just don't understand.
That's some sort of special drink or something.
Quick on Richard Sherman. I was telling Jordan this when he was putting me on. See, and I know you're the type of person, Chris, you think outside the box. See, again, when you're a black person, your humanity is never put there. Nobody is saying what should be said and stuff because, again, when you're black, you don't get a humanity level. When I heard about the Richard Sherman story and when his wife said that he kept saying, I want to kill myself, it made me think, again, of Andre Waters and Junior Seau, because he was two great football players who were saying those same things before they ultimately killed themselves. You know what I mean? And all I'm saying, Chris, is that Richard Sherman, though he's still a young man, he might be showing the early signs. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not trying to get no talk. No, I'm just telling you the reality. He may be showing the early signs of CTE. Because, Chris, you know yourself, and I love football, but I'm a realist, too. Because we see these guys sit back and they watch these games with their six-pack, and everything is for them. But them guys are having head-on collisions almost every play. Them guys getting hit in the head almost for 60 minutes and sometimes overtime and stuff. You don't know the damage that this young man, this brother could have been suffering already. He may be, because look how they tried to discredit that doctor who fucked the black doctor who was supposed to portray in the movie who brought out about CTE. And I'm saying Richard Sherman may be showing the early signs of CTE because you look, Chris, people drink all the time. They don't talk about killing themselves. I know if that was the case, half of my friends would be dead right now. They drink like a fish, but they don't talk about killing themselves. Now they say he was intoxicated, which he may have been, but that still don't mean that he may not be showing the early signs of
self-medication.
That's all.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and we got to get ready to go to break. But my callers, I'm gonna get to you. I'm gonna get to Barry and Calvin just a minute when we come back from break. But here's the deal. Let me say one thing before we go to break. Mental health situations are really starting to come to the fore. And we need to understand what that is, even though, like I said, I did a big tirade about that last week about Sha'Carri Richardson, and a lot of people try to get to her morally. We don't know what people's mental health is. Not an excuse. It's not, one of those old school, back in my day we did this, stop it. We got to take that under consideration. It has to be. Richard Sherman, I met Richard Sherman at the Super Bowl a few years ago, and smart, intelligent guy, but even smart, intelligent, and educated people have issues. It's not just you're crazy and you live and you're homeless or something. Perfectly quote unquote normal people have those issues. So we got to take that. We got to go to break though too. You're listening to 96.1 FM, 900 AM WURD, the Chris Murray Report. We'll be right back.
So many times we say to ourselves, I need to make a difference. Well, your chance is here. Center in the Park is holding a virtual volunteer event Friday, August 6, 2021 from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Advocate for those who can't, support those who can, and ensure all long-term care residents live with dignity and respect. Register for this Ombudsman event at info@centerinthepark.org. We all feel better when we do something that matters and when we do something with purpose.
Join Nick Taliaferro Wednesday, July 21st at 5 p.m. for a very special simulcast conversation on WURD and WVON Radio in Chicago. Hosted by WURD's own Nick Taliaferro and WVON's Matt McGill and Kimberly E. Goen on the impact of violence in Philadelphia and Chicago. That's Wednesday, July 21st at 5 p.m. exclusively on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com. Simulcast on WVON. Two of the only black-owned talk radio stations in the nation join forces for a powerful and timely conversation. The WURD Radio Newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting WURDradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio Newsletter. You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Okay, we are back. Who we have on the line with us? We have Barry. That's from South Philadelphia.
Good morning. I was thinking why is more Dominican. I mean, not Dominican. Caribbean ball players in the National Baseball League, other than brothers who live in the country, is because they don't have to wait till April and May to get out and play baseball. They can play baseball all year round. Mm-hmm. So their skills are much sharper than the brothers. That's why they take them.
Okay. Well, that's one explanation. Yeah, that's one reason. Go ahead. What else?
And I just want to throw that piece in.
Okay, well that's a good point. They play all year, but then again, a lot of kids play baseball down south. Like you get a lot of black baseball players from California and from down south because they play baseball. A lot of black baseball players are from Florida and too. So I mean, there's something to be said about that. I do think though that it's a combination of a lot of us don't play the sport. I mean, at one time you had a lot of great baseball players come out of Philadelphia, Delaware Valley. Reggie Jackson from Cheltenham, right? You had you also had Roy Campanella, who was out of this area. Biz Mackey in the Negro League. So you had some ball players in this area who come out of Philadelphia. So this is not, at one time, we had there's a lot of great baseball players that come out of this area. And I just think that at the end of the day, I think when they did the budget cuts under Reagan back in the 80s and all that, they cut out some of the recreational programs in the inner city where you could afford balls and gloves and stuff. I mean, I owned back in the day, back in the 70s, I owned about at least 3 or 4 baseball gloves. I wish I had kept them all. I had this one really good glove. It was like an outfielder's mitt. I mean, we played. I mean, I grew up in. One of these days, I like to do kind of like a mini documentary. We used to play baseball in my hometown, Baltimore, near this expressway called the Jones Falls Expressway, and we played a lot. We played a lot of street baseball. I learned how to be a switch hitter from playing street baseball more than playing actual little league, and but basketball and football are sports for us that are quick to riches. Baseball, you got to go AA, AAA, and it's a longer process. If you're really good, you'll get through that process. I mean, I've seen guys who are rookie sensations. I think if Ryan Howard had been brought up earlier, he probably has an even greater career, and perhaps he might have Hall of Fame possibilities. But things didn't happen that way. But you're right in many ways. The Dominican players are good at it because they play in a nice warm climate, but I also think it's also, to be honest, if we're really honest, it's cheaper to get Dominican players than it is to get even white American players. So that's a part of it too. So okay, so. But thanks for the call because I got to move on. We got Calvin from Delaware. Calvin, what's going on?
Chris, how you doing?
I'm all right, man.
Good, good. You know, earlier you were talking about, Stephen A. Smith. He was also disparaged the Nigerian team, which upset the USA in men's basketball. They had to check him on that. Because the USA basketball team, they lost to Nigeria. They lost to Australia. So he had to get checked on that because they were saying something to the effect, well, you got to, remember your heritage. I mean, where your people came from, because he was saying such disparaging things about the Nigerian basketball team, So, I don't know if these people say things to kind of be provocative, like Stephen A. Smith and another knucklehead is that Richard Jefferson with ESPN. I mean, he was saying these disparaging things about Chris Paul, about the fact that he's getting old. He didn't do nothing the last 2 games. I think these people, they say these things to kind of be provocative, but they're just stupid to say. To me, they're just ignorant comments,
Yeah, you have to think a little bit. You do have to think about what it is you're saying, and that you do have to, I think that, a lot of those Nigerian ball players, basketball is an international sport now.
Right.
A lot of people complain. People are catching up to the United States. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm tired of dream teams. I'm tired. Let me go back to the college guys. If we win, great. If we lose, or you want to, I just think that, America doesn't always have to win everything. My God, we got mad after John Thompson, couldn't beat the Soviets in the Olympics. It's like we always got to be on top. Well, to me, it's a compliment to American sports that people are getting good at it. We're victims of our own success. Soccer at one time, or football, or world football, was a British thing. Now the sport's being dominated by people from Brazil, from all over the world. People are playing the sport, and that's a beautiful thing. That's what we love about sports. That's the thing about baseball. Like baseball, for example. The Cubans, I love to see those Cuban players play here. Japanese.
But that Australian basketball team is pretty good. I didn't know Matisse Tybalt was from Australia. He's on that team. Patty Mills from San Antonio. Josh Green from Dallas. They got some good players on that Australian basketball team. So they may surprise some people in the Olympics.
Same with Nigeria too.
Yeah, the brother from Miami is on the Nigerian team. So, I wouldn't be surprised. But, it's just that, for them to make these kind of disparaging things. And the thing with Richard Jefferson, I remember a couple of years ago, he was supposed to have gotten married and left the girl at the altar. Getting down to him getting married, the girl at the altar, she just punked out at the last minute. If you don't want to marry the girl, man up and say something ahead of time. This guy, man, it's just stupid. But I just wanted to just say those things, and thanks for the time.
Okay. We got one more call, but thank you very much. Thanks for the call. We got one more call. We got Pots and Pans from West Philadelphia, and then we're going to bring in Joe. So, Pots and Pans, what's happening, brother?
Hey, Chris. Hey, I'm doing fine, man. Everything is good. I'd like to acknowledge, agree with all the callers. But Samaya Richardson, maybe it's a blessing in disguise that she didn't go to the Olympics, because you see what's happening with the virus and stuff, And so I like to hope that we can all encourage her and not let her get down, because she's so young and got, you know, a lot to look forward to. And I heard that the other day that the brother Simon was saying she was offered by this company to advertise for them. The company is into marijuana, and it was a big money thing, but she turned it down. That's a good thing, because she got good opportunities, you know, for the future. And, you know, her goodness going to go on. And also, like you also acknowledge the young sister that's 14, Kayla, that's got her talents with her, you know, I'm glad to see her coming up, and she's so wonderful. And I want to speak on about baseball. When they have the interviews after the game is over on the coach, are you in the room, locker room with the other interviewers? Reporters?
Yeah, I was on the Zoomcast. The person you heard last night, the last question that Joe Girardi took was from me, because I cover the team and I cover a lot of. I like a lot of other people in Sports Talk Radio. I actually come out to the games and try, you know, and every now and then, if I can get there, come to practices as well. But yeah, that was me you heard last night. So, but the Phillies do have to win in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, good. Okay, I'm glad you got in. I remember you said one time it's hard for black reporters to get acknowledged. I'm glad you got in. You know, you know, like I play baseball too and football. Those are my two main sports I used to play and I enjoy. But I think about baseball, the only sport that don't, you know, once a person comes out the game, he can't come back in the game. You know, and I was thinking, like, sometimes, you know, wish they could, because, you know, I just love the game. But that new rule they got for a person get on second base automatically. You know.
Yeah, the extra inning, they had that from last year. I gotta take the next call. Sorry to cut you off, pots and pans, but I gotta get to my guest. But you know, I hate that rule. I think, to me, just play the game, man. I'm baseball. One way baseball I think is killing itself is analytics, and sometimes they try to tweak the wrong parts of the game. And there's some parts you gotta tweak, but come on. I mean, I don't know. All right, on the line with me. And next time Joe comes on, we should put the ding ding, because I can get Joe Sanlaquito to come out swinging. We got my man Joe Sanlaquito, Ring Magazine, a whole bunch of other publications. This guy covers very extensive knowledge of high school sports, and we got to bring up high school sports. In the fall, I like to do some things on high school sports in Philly, because I might as well just bring the whole community with me. Why not? We got to get to the community. So. Anyway, so Joe, we got a couple of fights coming up tonight. We got Jermell Charlo, and for he has part of the 154 belt. And I gotta ask this, and I think this is coming on regular Showtime. So if you got Showtime, which means I don't have to go on bootleg channels, to watch certain fights. But Joe, let's talk about the fight game, starting with this fight tonight. What do you see in this particular fight? You got a kid from Argentina who has just one loss. From what I understand, good, punching guy, has the punching power. Brian Castellano. And who do you like in that fight, and what do you expect to see from Jermell Charlo in this fight?
I see Jermell Charlo winning, and possibly winning by late round knockout, maybe 8th, 9th, or 10th round. Costanzo has not lost. Costanzo is 17-0-1. He's 31, and this is a unique situation because this would be the first time, I think, since I I think since Winky Wright, that there could be, this is for the undisputed junior middleweight championship of the world tonight. So we already have a lightweight world champion who has all 4 belts. And in this day and age, it's even harder. You know, in the past you had your alphabet sanctioning bodies, your IBF, WBC, WBA. But now you have 4 title belts to contend for. And Teofimo Lopez is already the 135 lightweight champion. You have right now it escapes me. My God, Josh from England. He is the 140-pound world champion. And tonight, Jamel Charlo will be fighting for the outright. Josh Taylor, there you go. Josh Taylor is the 140-pound undisputed champion. And
what about Gervonta Davis?
Charlo fighting for the WBO belt. Costanzo holds the WBO belt. And that is a 4th belt now that's recognized by a lot of people. I can care less about the belts. But the bottom line is Jamel Charlo, if he wins tonight, and there's a strong possibility he's going to win, he'll be the undisputed junior middleweight, 154 junior middleweight champion. Which is rare.
I mean,
which is rare. And it's three within a year's time that have been crowned as undisputed world champions. It's an incredibly rare event. I think it's great for boxing because it galvanizes weight classes. Hey, listen, I'm here at 130, I'm here at 135, I'm here at 140, I'm here at 154. I know now who the champion is. I know now who to go after. I mean, we grew up with Ali. Ali was the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. And, that's who guys were aiming for. Matthew Saad Muhammad was the undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world. That's who you gunned for. For a time there, Floyd Mayweather was the welterweight undisputed world champion. That's who you aimed for. So it helps the sport because it gives the sport greater definition.
Absolutely, because I think that there has to be. I think we forgot. Is Gervonta Davis just won the 140 title when he won his fight, right? Is he also in that mix?
Title at 140. The guy that actually holds the major 140 belts is Josh Taylor.
Okay. I like to see that's going to.
He fought Jose Ramirez, who had 2 belts. Now they are both under the top-ranked banner. Tank Davis is a Floyd Mayweather promoted fighter, and again the BS and chunk of I can use other terms, but this is a family radio station that gets in the way of real, true fights. And right now, Tank's at a stage and at a state where Tank can beat anybody at 140 pounds. And a Tank Davis Josh Taylor fight would fill up Madison Square Garden. And if Tank opted to do this, and Tank should back up a Brinks truck for it. If Tank opted to do this, to go to England, he could fight in front of over 100,000 people at Wembley Stadium.
Oh yeah, no
Tank
doubt.
Davis,
That was
Josh Taylor.
man.
So and we're talking about the diminished sport of boxing that no one seems to care about, right?
Right. see, that's the thing, and I want to get it. We got to go to break, and because we got to pay bills around here, so we got to go to break. I'm going to talk to you about that. I'm going to try to squeeze in the conversation about the 4 Kings and Sugar Ray Robinson. Because I woke up this morning because I'm a geek, and I turned on YouTube and I was watching this film on Ray Robinson, and I got to talk about that too. So we come back. You're listening to 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURD, the Chris Murray Report. Will be right back.
Tune in every Saturday at 6 p.m. to Recovery Talk 101 with your host, Rick Ford, talking about addiction, treatment, and recovery. Right here on WURD Radio. Want the latest in WURD swag? Check out the shop tab on WURDradio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on WURDradio.com. Show the world that you're all about black. Talk media. You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Wow, we're back. Okay, well, that's a short break. Thank you, Jordan. I appreciate it. Okay, before I get started, though, I have to do something really important. Are you looking for a job? Well, WURD has got you covered. we just launched a brand new job portal featuring jobs from some of Philadelphia's leading companies and arts organizations. If you go to the portal right now, you will see jobs from WURD Radio, the Kimmel Center, Her Foods, Always Best Care, and more. Apply for a job today. Go to our livelihood website at WURDworks.com. That's WURDworks.com and click jobs. Employers, are you looking to hire diverse talent? WURD has got you covered as well. We just launched a brand new job portal to help you connect with a diverse talent in the Philadelphia area and beyond. If you'd like to have your jobs featured on our job portal, give us a call at 215-425-7875. That's 215-425-7875, or send us an email at sales@WURDradio.com. Check out the job portal today on our livelihood website at WURDworks.com. Again, that's WURDworks.com and click jobs. Okay, we are back. Now, Joe, let's talk a little bit. As we know, the heavyweight fight between Fury and Deontay Wilder. Why am I? Good Lord, it's another thing. Man,
you and I both today, Chris. Don't cut yourself a break. You and I both. I mean, I forgot Charles Terry. You forgot Deontay Wilder.
Yeah, I can't forget about the Mr. Man, you know, my hat was too big and I couldn't, you know. But the thing about that, the whole COVID thing has moved the fight to October 9th. What have you learned from Wilder's camp? Has he learned how to like box? Has he learned how to throw that left jab and move it here? Has he learned any boxing skills since last we saw him in the ring?
I think what it looks like is Deontay's putting on, from what I've gathered here, gathered from some people within his circle, will say, just Deontay's still Deontay. I mean, you can't tell Deontay what to do. He's open to some things and some theories. And again, by the way, you know who's training him, right?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I know it's not Breland anymore. Is that one of Manny Stewart's people, or?
No, that's Sugar Hill. Sugar Hill's training. He's training Tyson Fury.
Right. Who's training him?
Malik Scott.
Malik Scott from Philly.
Yeah.
That's right.
Malik now is Deontay's trainer.
Wow.
And what's happened here is I like to think he'll listen to Malik. I'd like to think that. I don't know about that. I question it. If he's willing to turn around and add some boxing to his obviously powerful repertoire, and people say, oh, he's a one-trick pony. Well, you know, again, it's a hell of a trick. You got a devastating right hand. That's going to open up a lot of doors. But you, and again, credit to you, because you have been the one always saying his game's not well-rounded enough, and all the while, like for years, and I'll admit guilt here, for years and years and years, I underestimated Manny Pacquiao for years. And for a time here, I've underestimated Tyson Fury. I've been proven wrong, and I'm man enough to admit this on your air, and man enough to admit it publicly and privately. I've been proven wrong. And for the longest time, you had been expounding on how limited Deontay is. And I just didn't want to hear that because, again, he had that, thunderous right hand that could erase so many of his other deficiencies. I just didn't want to see that because, again, I saw him lose 7 rounds to Luis Ortiz. And I was right there ringside. And then finally one thunderous right hand and ends the whole thing.
Yeah. Or as Howard Cosell would say, one strong right. The point you make is, I'm going to tell you something, and I tell the people this all the time. I thought Michael Spinks would beat Mike Tyson. I mean, because of what I saw at the time was Michael Spinks was a good boxer, though. You remember, against people like the White Muhammad Ali and others, a lot of people didn't give him a chance. Against Larry Holmes, no one gave him a chance. So Although I ain't going to lie, when I saw Michael Spinks' face in the ring, it looked like he was going to his own funeral.
Skills and ability, and we all agree Michael Spinks is a Hall of Famer, skills and ability. Should he, and did he have the skill set to last more than 25 seconds or however long he lasted against Mike Tyson? Yes. But Mike Spinks beat Mike Spinks before Mike Spinks even entered the ring that night.
I would agree with that, and I thought,
someone worded it to me. He should have been wearing a Depends diaper instead of boxing trunks.
That's messed up. I like Michael Spinks. So, oh man, that's cold. That's cold, man.
Do you remember the thing that was odd too? Do you remember? I think he was wearing the traditional Ali trunks. It might have been the white trunks with the black stripe down the middle. And I also think he was wearing knee pads that night too. It was weird, like old school basketball white knee pads.
He was wearing knee. I did not notice that. I'm gonna go back and look at the tape. He was wearing knee pads. Oh wow! I mean, he just had this look.
As a matter of fact, I've just Googled it here now. Yeah, he was wearing like what would resemble old school padded white knee pads, and I have no idea why. Maybe he was just like, hey, it's like the English fighter that rented out the bottom of his shoes before facing Tyson, and obviously a very, very faded Tyson in the latter part of his career. But he rented out the bottom of his shoes because within minutes, still a very faded, still a very eroded Mike Tyson put this guy on his butt, and the rented bottom portion of this guy's shoes got some playtime.
Wow. I mean, but that was the thing, and I mean. But I was also, and I had, as much as I can admit my foible in choosing Mike Spinks, picking Mike Spinks to win that fight, but I also said that a fighter with a good stiff left jab and lateral movement could beat Mike Tyson, and
yeah,
I think I was. Yeah, I mean, we found that, and I kept telling my friends, hey, they looked at me like, and I had to bring up some of my friends, But the thing is that Styles, I'll never forget, Bert Sugar talked about this all the time. I remember the interview I had with him, it was just the style of the sport. I mean, styles make fights, man. Mm-hmm. And speaking of which, I want to get a little bit of history with you today because I've been meaning to talk to you about this on this show with our callers and with our listeners. Four Kings documentary came out. I've been watching it all summer, and been watching it, and I'm fascinated. It was a documentary that captured not only the boxing but the history of that time, where these fighters come from. And one of the things that struck me about that documentary was the fact that for years, and people had perceived a Ray Leonard. And I was a big fan of Sugar Ray Leonard, to be this soft guy, media-created boxer. I know this guy's background. I knew where he grew up. That guy's a tough guy. And I would say out of all those fighters, Ray Leonard was, now, as much as I'm a fan of Ray Leonard, to me, the best boxer, the best fighter of those four kings who all fought each other, I'd still say Marvin Hagler, despite his loss to Ray Leonard, was still the best fighter of that group. What are your thoughts on that documentary, and what are your thoughts on those boxers from that time?
Well, first off, Ray Leonard was the best out of the group because Ray Leonard beat them all, and Ray Leonard was the only one that beat them all. So Ray Leonard's the one that succeeds. He's the one that surfaces on that Mount Rushmore. Duran kept on reinventing himself. Duran was his biggest detractor. Marvin should have had enough to say when, and after he took the pounding to Mugabe, he should have taken more time, but he was so hell-bent on getting in the ring with Ray, he didn't get himself and give his body time enough to recuperate from the Mugabe fight. And again, Leonard, Hagler took that fight. I believe Hagler went Hearns, which was an immense battering of both fighters, even though it's still, in my opinion, 3 rounds, but it's still the greatest fight that I've ever seen, and maybe the greatest fight I'll ever see. Up there with Corrales and Castillo, it's certainly in that competition. But he took that battering, and obviously Marvin won that. Marvin was my favorite out of all of them because I could relate to Marvin. You know, and Marvin was the guy that was overlooked. Marvin was the guy that had to turn around and climb up on his own, was not handed anything, where Ray had the U.S. Olympic pedigree. What's his name? Tommy Hearns had the background, and he had the great Emmanuel Stewart in his corner. And Duran had, obviously the international acclaim. I mean, Marvin was the one that truly got every inch, every speck of talent and got everything that he deserved and everything he earned. What got me was, I mean, Duran, remember Duran was incredibly open during that, and all the different types of, we'll say, to the discerning adults out there, to the educated adults out there, Duran did far more hurt to himself. Far more hurt to himself with how he, again, reinvented himself. Marvin, I think, could have beaten Leonard when they did fight, but again, Marvin, was so hell-bent on getting Leonard in the ring that he took that time. Again, he came off the Hearns victory, he came off the Mugabe victory, and again, these were two incredibly punishing victories. And here, Ray's a smart guy. Ray's total package. Ray had an unseen razor's edge that we both know of. Ray was incredibly, if you remember, he was incredibly transparent during that documentary, talking about the drug use, talking about the womanizing, talking about the abuse he took, the sexual abuse he took. Remember? I mean, he mentioned it in passing. Yeah. But I mean, Ray was through hell, and all those guys, to one degree or another, were through hell. Hearns, obviously, growing up in abject poverty in Detroit. Maybe out of all of them, maybe Duran, possibly the worst. You know, just what he grew up with in Panama. Hagler growing up and enduring and surviving the riots of Newark before his mother got him out and moved him up to the Massachusetts area. And then obviously Ray, who grew up, I think it was at Palmer Park, Maryland, and the hell he went through. And it was decades. And this is within, I think, the last maybe 5 years that he's even come public with the sexual abuse that he endured from a coach early on. So, you know, all of these guys were granted superstars, incredible superstars, stars, monumental superstars, stars for the ages. But these were all damaged people that used that outlet, that amazing, incredible outlet of boxing to get to where, you know, you and I are talking on the air about them on a Saturday afternoon in July. Many, many more people, tens of thousands, millions of people know who they are. Their fights resonate and will continue to resonate through time. But they were all damaged people that somehow, some way found this salve in boxing to get over where they possibly could have been. And believe me, I've done many, many, many a story on incredibly talented young people, you know, that come up and have certain types of things, certain types of backgrounds. You got one or two choices, young man and young woman. You know, either you're going to let it eat you up and you wind up and going in one direction, or you're going to use it as motivation and a tool of fire to go in another direction. And we see four incredibly driven men who found that direction. The beauty about Ray, too, was that even when Ray was on top, Ray still found that hunger there. Whereas, I'll go here with Duran, for as much as I love Duran, I had a chance to meet Duran many, many, many times. And you won't come across the more opposite guy in person than that terror he was in the ring. He's like an overgrown teddy bear.
Duran. I met Duran in Atlantic City. I mean, I've grown to like that guy, and I like his spirit.
Every time he sees me, he hugs and kisses me. Jose, come here, Jose, my friend. And to be recognized by him is pretty. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. But one more thing I got to say, because we got to go to, we should continue this conversation. I think all the struggle that you talked about gave them the resolve in the ring against each other. I mean, I think in the second Hearns-Leonard fight, Hearns was determined not to go down and to keep him. He knocked Leonard down. That was just the will of those two guys, you know. And I think all of those guys, Hagler, even in the Leonard fight, who I always say Leonard outpointed Hagler. I don't think he like blatantly like hurt or beat Hagler in that way, but I do think that it was just those guys had a tremendous amount of resolve, and that was fueled, as you so eloquently stated, from their their childhoods, their upbringing, the struggle that they went through, and that's why those guys were such four compelling figures. And I got to go to break, Joe. We got to end the segment.
Chris, real quick.
Go ahead.
The other twisted side of it is, Chris, none of them would be who they were unless they went through what they went through.
Right. Absolutely. And sometimes that adversity fuels you to perform at a higher level because you overcome a lot of things. So we got to end this segment. Joe, thank you so much for being here today. And we can talk boxing all day, ladies and gentlemen.
My pleasure. Always. Thank you, Chris.
No problem. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to 96.1 FM, not your AM WURD. The Chris Murray Report will be right back.
At Bank of America, we're helping to meet the need for more affordable housing through community development banking.
I'm Jim Dever, President of Bank of America, Greater Philadelphia. My teammates and I are deepening our commitment to help meet the affordable housing need. Here in Greater Philadelphia, we're also collaborating with Habitat for Humanity Philadelphia to expand options for more people. What would you like the power to do?
Bank of America N.A., member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi.
Oh, hey. Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media. You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Independent Black Media.
Okay, we are back. I'm waiting for my man Brandon Robinson of the Scoop B podcast, and he's going to be hosting a whole bunch of shows talking about the NBA Finals. But before we get to that, let me get some callers in. We got Brother Timothy from South Philadelphia. Brother Timothy, what's happening?
Brother Murray, it's always a pleasure. We haven't talked in a while. And your knowledge of sports and your guests that come on are just this phenomenal moment in time, in time,
Right.
Yes, and I'm going to say this to you, sir, that I don't think a lot of people talk about Tommy Hearns like they should. You have to really...
I agree with that. That you're absolutely right. I agree with that. Go on, I'm sorry. Go on.
Yeah, I'm going to say this. Leonard, of course, the Olympic champion, he's at the right time at the right place. He was able to be Dundee as a trainer. He did a lot of things. He marketed himself well. But Hearns went from one division to the next. And he was awesome with his jab, man. Listen to me. At one time, Leonard didn't want to fight Hearns right away. He didn't fight him right away. And I think, it took time to understand what he was up against. I'm going to say this, that Leonard's a smart fighter. He would think, before he just get in the ring with anybody. Like Ali will leave his belt open. You want Ali? I'm for you. Let's do this. Even though Norton broke his jaw, he fought him twice. He didn't mind fighting Joe Frazier 3 times. If Foreman wanted to fight him again, he would fight Foreman again. So I'm saying that Leonard thought about some of the people that he fought. Not to take away anything from Leonard. Don't get me wrong. But I've learned to respect Tommy Hearns more, and even George Foreman. George Foreman was better the second time around than he was the first. Now, I'm going to say this to you. where would Aaron Pryor fit into that?
That's a good question because I think there was a point like Aaron Pryor. Nobody in the amateur ranks, and I can tell you this. You know, my uncle Robert Newton fought Aaron Pryor as an amateur, and nobody wanted any parts except my uncle. Well, I like to brag about that. Of Aaron Pryor. I mean, supposedly, if you listen to Butch Lewis, the late Butch Lewis talk about it, Aaron Pryor was so good that Ray Leonard and them moved up, that Hearns and them moved up. And I think I'm trying to think, did Pryor beat Hearns? But I'm going to talk about Hearns in a second too, because you made a great point about Hearns. But Pryor was that tough. It's just that for some reason, I think when Ray got out of the fight game, because I would have loved to see Pryor move up to welterweight, because he was a junior welterweight, and fight Ray Leonard. That would have been, I would pay $100 on pay-per-view, and I wouldn't even, go through the cheap internet sites that I go to, but I would pay to see that. Aaron Pryor was one of the best fighters of that era. We kind of ignore him.
Aaron Pryor would have gave you everything you wanted. He would have bought his lunchbox, his breakfast, and dinner there. Believe it, he would have fought all of them.
Oh yeah. I think he would have been Leonard's Joe Frazier.
Oh yeah, the Hawk. The Hawk. Oh. How many fights did he lose? I don't know. How many fights did he lose?
I had to look that up. Jordan looked that up for me, but that's.
I know. He won almost all the fights. Matter of fact, he fought a guy from here. That we came out of the same gym as the executioner, Gary Hinton. And Gary, it looked like, I'm serious, it looked like Gary beat him. But you look at the fight again, you see how Aaron Pryor was inching up. And you know what? I would have liked, he had a lot of Philadelphia fighters that time that he could have fought more of, like Animal Fletcher. Him and Animal Fletcher would have been real good. You see what I'm saying? Because Gary Hinton and Animal Fletcher would go at it back and forth. He would have been good with a lot of people here. And I'm gonna tell you somebody else that was good, but he clocked out pretty early. Was Jerome Artis. Jerome Artis beat Sugar Ray Leonard in the amateurs.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, you're right. There's a lot of guys that you're probably. I mean, Timmy, we can talk about this all. I got to move on to the next call, but you're right. I mean. But before I get to the next caller, I gotta say this. Tommy Hearns was the most athletic fighter. Right training and better defensive skills and learning. I think if he had gotten on his bicycle and kept that jab out there against Hagler, I think he would have beaten Hagler. But that's my opinion. I'm gonna take one more before we get to Brandon Robinson, who's waiting online. Let me get to Maurice from North Philadelphia. Maurice, I gotta get you to get in your point quickly before I get to my guest. So what's going on?
Let me call back. Don't rush me. Your caller made a good point, and I want to make a couple points.
Yeah.
Well, do you call back?
Go ahead.
Because the point I want to make is, would you want me to call back?
No, make your point now.
The last caller made a good point. The point is that Philly and Detroit connection. I have 4 points to make. The reason Sugar didn't fight Tommy Hearns, they were good friends.
Right.
When Sugar had trouble, he went to Detroit and he stayed with Tommy as a young guy. Mm-hmm. The reason Sugar didn't fight Aaron Pryor, because Aaron had roughed him up in sparring when he got ready for the Tommy Hearns fight. There's a connection there.
Right.
The other point I want to make is when your last caller said about Philadelphia fighters, but my question to you is, Bill Miller, Emmanuel Stewart, Joe Louis, and Eddie Futch, what do they have in common besides being from Detroit?
They had champions. They all managed champions. That's one thing I see. But what else? But go ahead.
Well, they were all trained by Philadelphia trainer legendary Jack Blackburn.
Okay.
And that's why they had the Philadelphia shell defense, all the Philadelphia styles there. You had Philadelphia trainers going to Detroit with them guys, training Detroit fighters. K-Man Lee was took to Detroit to fight and train. See, this is the history that we got to talk about, that connection. Marvin Hagler made his living off of Philadelphia fighters. That's why he improved. So when we tell this story, we got to go in depth. But I had some other things, but Chris, what bothered me was this. Your guest said damage. We're not damaged people, we are trauma. Because we want to talk about damage, then we can talk about who made us damage for the day they
Yeah, that's true.
So we want to talk about, no, we're not damaged people, we have trauma.
Okay.
And my last but not least, when we talk about American baseball, we don't talk about that the Major League Baseball do not invest in the black community here. But over in the islands, they built baseball academies. So what they're doing is they over there with the slave trade, and they're using the kids up as far as 12 and 13 for peanuts. Then they come bring them over here to the majors. They have a system over there that's atrocity to black people. It don't matter if it's on this land or the Caribbean land, the slave trade continues. And that's why the Dominicans are fluctuated inside the Major League Baseball, because they built all the Major League teams, every one of them built baseball programs and academies over there in the Caribbean. And last but not least, one more thing. The girl that won the spelling bee, Chris, I want you to go back and look at her. She's one of the best basketball players. They got her ranked as a sixth grader. She's a hell of a basketball player. The young black girl that just won the spelling bee, kudos to her. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Okay, no, those are all good points. And then the bottom of the hour, I'm going to go address all of them. But we have Brandon Robinson, Scoopy Podcast. Brandon, I saw something on Instagram saying you're hosting another event. Man, I'm going to tell you something. I followed your career and your life and all that. You know, man, you make me proud every time I have you on the show. So let me ask. So let's start our conversation with the NBA Finals. Your thoughts. Who do you think? I mean, this series, and I gotta question some things too. But so let's talk about a 2-2 series. Where do you think this is going? Is this shaping up to be a classic final?
Yeah, I think when you look at this series so far, I mean, number one, both teams have protected the home court. The Suns started out hot. They got the first two games, and the Bucks returned the favor. And now, we're here in Game 5 later this evening. And when I look at this series, I think one thing that stands out to me for the Bucks is they used the same formula that the Suns used against them the first two games. They built a wall, no pun intended. When you look at a situation where in Game 4, Giannis Antetokounmpo scored 29 points, but Chris Middleton scored 40 points, you look at what their defense did against the Phoenix Suns. I mean, in the last three games, they caused Chris Paul to turn the ball over about 15 times. And really frustrated DeAndre Ayton mightily, in the loss in Game 4, while Devin Booker scored 42 points. The only other, in my mind, powerful contributor for the Suns in Game 4 was Jay Crowder. And I really think that in this series, particularly in Game 4, Mike Budenholzer, and Game 3, Mike Budenholzer had the coaching advantage over Monty Williams. I like Monty a lot. But I do think that I got flashbacks to watching Coach Bud during his Atlanta Hawks coaching days. And, I think that this series is going to go back and forth. I mean, this is the first time in NBA history that three different players have scored 40 or more points in a game. You saw Giannis do it back-to-back in Games 1 and 2, and in return, you saw Chris Middleton in his 40-point effort in Game 4, as well as Devin Booker scoring 42 of his own, also in Game 4. So it's interesting. I'm liking it because it's not the usual suspects. It's not LeBron. It's not the Warriors. It's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, it is. And although I will say this, though, I mean, Giannis's block on Ayton, while I thought it was a key block in a pivotal game, I didn't think it was the greatest of all time because it's a 2-2 series, okay? If they win the series, okay, maybe you can categorize it as one of the great blocks in the key part of the series. How can I put it? I don't like to make those kinds of judgments of things before a series ends because you never know what's going to change the complexion of a series. And I watched dozens of them over the years and years and years. And Did you think that folks, especially ESPN, were making too much of that? So, I mean, I can see, talking about it as a key part of that game at that juncture of the series, but I didn't think it should have been elevated to one of the all-time greats. What's your side of that?
Well, I think the ESPN portion that you bring light to, I think it's a thing because they own the rights to those broadcasts. ABC is the home of the NBA Finals, and I think that if it was on Turner, it would be the same thing. That block. But I'll add, I think in today's snippet culture, I think people aren't watching games. They're looking at highlights and they're looking at clips. And so that block stands out. And I think that I would necessarily put it up there with, like, the greatest block of all time. I just think that people often characterize or put captions to everything because everything is flash in the pan, fly by night. And I won't be an old head when I say that, but I do think that it was a cool block. I couldn't do it. You could do it. But at the same time, I think Giannis is such a freak of nature. I mean, I think his skill set reminds me of a cross between both Tracy McGrady and Dirk Nowitzki. And I think when you – and with the block – the slim build block potential of a combination of Stromae Swift and one in Kenyon Martin. And I think you've just not seen someone of that caliber all in one setting. And I think that if Giannis wins the championship this year with his Milwaukee Bucks, you got to kind of block moment aside, I think you have to put some respect on his name. I mean, this is a two-time MVP in the regular season who, last year people had their questions about whether or not he was, tough enough or whatnot, and, here we are. So, if he gets a championship this year, I think he is in stellar company. I mean, in the first three games of the finals, his name is in the record books along the likes of Allen Iverson and others who scored 100 points in the finals within that rapid pace. That's not easy to do.
No doubt about that. And the thing is, I think people have to appreciate Giannis and put him in that category. Even though Chris Paul, I think, has struggled in the last two games, I still say that he has done kind of a remarkable job of getting that team and leading that team. And I'm sure he'll adjust to what's going on in these finals. But Devin Booker is really starting to make, even though they lost, he had 42 points. Is he the guy? Because everybody talks about him taking the mantle of the next Kobe Bryant or Kobe Bryant type of player. What do you think of his performance? And are we seeing, him growing into that generation defining player that, say, a Steph Curry is and that Kobe Bryant was, God rest his soul? And is he becoming that guy? Is Booker becoming that guy?
Devin Booker is Devin Booker. I think that we often make comparisons. We often put titles, and I think we just have so much star power in basketball, not just in the NBA, and that's multi-levels, whether that's the NBA, we're talking about Devin Booker, whether that was the high school ranks within the last 20, 25 years when we looked at LeBron at St. Vincent St. Mary's in Akron, Ohio, whether we looked at LaMelo Ball and Zion Williamson's impact back when they played that big AAU game that was not even standing room only, and even in college where we're looking at, this month's draft. So I want to preface this by saying it's a lot of star power, and I think that we I think because we're so spoiled, appreciate the talent that's just Devin Booker. Now, do I see comparisons to Kobe Bryant? I see some. But I also see comparisons to one in Coatesville, Pennsylvania's own Rip Hamilton, who perfected the mid-range game, and playing under Larry Brown was, and I'm talking about Rip here, was on one of the baddest defensive-minded championship teams in the 2004 NBA champs Detroit Pistons. And I've seen points comparatively with Devin Booker in the conference finals against the Los Angeles Clippers, where he looked like Rip Hamilton to me. So while I think that we talk about comparisons, we talk about legacy and more, I'm enjoying just seeing the talent that is Devin Booker, who has flashes of many people's game. I mean, when we talk about comparisons and grades, I think where we are right now is, the NBA enters its 75th anniversary next season.
Right.
I find it interesting how when you look back at the 96 season, where everybody wore those gold logo patches on their jerseys and shorts, and back in 96, that class of the Allen Iversons, the Kobe Bryants, the Stephon Marburys, the Ray Allens, and others were the next cultural-driven generation. And so when I look at that era and what they've done, I think this new class that's now running the league and moving the league forward is in good hands, and I think Devin Booker will be part of that next shift. Great player, great team player, coming of age, and we'll see what happens and what he and his sons do to clean up their work tonight in Phoenix.
Yeah, that's going to be, like I say again, this is probably at this point the biggest game of this series to see where it swings. But other news in the NBA, Dame Lillard is looking to be moved around and all that. A lot of fans in Philadelphia are kind of excited. It's the wish list. What do we get? And what if Dame Lillard were to come to Philadelphia? That's what we're saying here. What would but the Sixers would have to give up a lot for Dame Lillard. How do you see that scenario playing itself? Even though I think Dame came out and said, well, he wasn't really looking, but that the rumor is out there. What would the Sixers have to give up to get a Dame Lillard?
Well, first and foremost, the Portland Trailblazers are not required to give Dame Lillard to anyone.
Right.
It's a luxury that they have right now because when you look at Damian Lillard, number one, a report that came out yesterday from Henry Abbott of True Hoops indicated that Damian Lillard could be requesting a trade within the coming days, and in addition to that, he later refuted that report during a Team USA press conference, and what I can say to you was this: there were discussions regarding whether or not Ben Simmons would even be in the equation as it relates to C.J. McCollum and more. So there's a lot to be digested on that plate there. Ultimately, as it relates to Ben Simmons, there are suitors in that regard, whether it's the Warriors. There's been discussions about a possible move in which James Wiseman, as well as even Andrew Wiggins, would be in that equation, and the potential of bringing a third team in like the Toronto Raptors. There's that. So I think there's a lot of discussion as it relates to Lillard, and there's a lot that relates to Ben Simmons. If Lillard says, that he woke up to that and that it's not coming from him, you have to take him at his word. But I'll add this: he also didn't say that he wants to stay.
That's one of those things. Stay tuned. But I tend to think, well, like I say, according to a lot of my colleagues in Philly, what they're all telling me, different people are telling me, is that Ben Simmons has to leave. And I don't know. I would say maybe that's true, and maybe that's right. But can he learn how to shoot within this off-season cycle? I mean, there have been reports that he's been working on his game. I mean, can a player with that kind of
I don't.
Go ahead.
I don't think. I think people, when enough people say the same thing over and over again, people then believe that it's true.
Right.
And I think people have repeated over and over again, Ben Simmons can't shoot. And I remember a day when a point guard's job was to distribute the basketball.
Right. I got that. Yeah, sure.
And I feel as though Ben Simmons' skill set is so unique because he is of the Magic Johnson, Jason Kidd, LeBron James mold. LeBron is more of an attacker than Magic Johnson and Jason Kidd were. In today's game, Luka Doncic, in my mind, as well as LeBron in Cleveland in his first stint, or even LeBron in Miami, is more the comparison, just the ability to be a tall point guard, distribute the basketball, score the ball at will. And I remember there was a point in LeBron's first stint in Cleveland, where people questioned his jumper. And I remember he got in the lab with Damon Jones, and things started to really click for him. And I think that we expect such fast results all of the time. And I also think that greatness takes time. I think that as it relates to Ben Simmons, I reported last year that quietly he doesn't want to be there. But it's one of those things where when you're a brand, when you say things like that, you got to come back with the fan base that's not going to welcome you with open arms, or just make your life difficult while you're there. And so when I look at Ben Simmons, number one, Joel Embiid embodies the city of Philadelphia more than Ben Simmons does, just from being around the culture, knowing the fan base, and just responding the way that he does. Now, if the 76ers do decide to trade him, teams like the Minnesota Timberwolves, as well as the Denver Nuggets, make sense. The Denver Nuggets make sense because Michael Porter Jr., to me, many people compare him to Kevin Durant. Some just compared him to Brandon Ingram. I think his scoring upside is pretty awesome. The Philadelphia 76ers also should have conversations with the Cleveland Cavaliers, particularly as it relates to Kevin Love's contract, which could eventually be very attractive, as it will be an expiring deal to many people around the trade deadline and beyond, as well as the future of Colin Sexton. Those things considered, I think Cleveland is a good option, as well as the New Orleans Pelicans, who are looking to shop their first-round picks and the draft later this month. Brandon Ingram's name has been floating around quite a bit. And so these are things that you kind of have to gather and figure out what's next. If Ben Simmons were to go to Denver, they'd be in an instant NBA Finals candidate, particularly because you're able to move Jamal Murray off the ball some and, continue to move the Rock with their reigning MVP and Nikola Jokic under Coach Malone. So, there's a lot to consider there. I think the Portland Trailblazers are also an interesting fit, but I think they'd have to add more than just C.J. McCollum. And I also think that they'd have to legitimately include a third team in any move. So there's a lot to consider, Chris. I can go on and on all day, but to act as if Ben Simmons is damaged goods, I just can't do that in good faith because I think he's a brilliant basketball mind, and I think he has a very big future. And I think Philadelphia being a Northeast city.
The views and opinions expressed by the guests.
/ Mid-Atlantic, you get it. So I think at the end of the day, I think we got to be patient.
Okay. I got to go, man, but thank you so much for being here today. Where else can we find you just before we let you go?
Well, I am now a national NBA writer for Bally Sports Network, so you can find all my writing as well as TV appearances and more at Bally Sports. You can visit ballysports.com. Follow me on Twitter at ScoopB, Instagram at Scoop_B, and subscribe to the Scoop B Radio podcast, available on all platforms.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to go to break. You're listening to 96.1 FM, MWRD. The Chris Murray Report will be right back.
Hey, WURD family, did you hear? It's official. The Colorectal Cancer Alliance just announced the new age for colon cancer screenings has been officially lowered to age 45 for everyone. If you are 45 or older, it's time to get screened. Go to WURDradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner to register for your free at-home screening test. Did you know colon cancer is largely preventable with on-time screening? And there's a 90% survival rate when caught early. African Americans are 20% more likely to get colon cancer and about 40% more likely to die from it than most other groups. So for the next 3 months, you can go to WURDradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner for your free at-home screening test. A screening navigator will contact you to ask a few questions and help you get screened. It's that simple. Again, just go to WURDradio.com, click on the Go to Know banner, and fill out the form to request your free at-home screening test. Go to Know today. Be sure to tune in this Sunday at 2 p.m. for the Physicians on Air show with host Dr. Alexander.
Join Nick Taliaferro Wednesday, July 21st at 5 p.m. for a very special simulcast conversation on WURD and WVON Radio in Chicago. Hosted by WURD's own Nick Taliaferro and WVON's Matt McGill and Kimberly E. Goen on the impact of violence in Philadelphia and Chicago. That's Wednesday, July 21st at 5 p.m. exclusively on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com. Simulcast on WVON. Two of the only black-owned talk radio stations in the nation join forces for a powerful and timely conversation. You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Okay, we are back. Last 30 minutes or so of the show, I'm going to give it to you guys. You can call in 215-634-8065, 1-866-361-0900. Talk about live things. Now, here's the thing. A lot of times when I have guests on the show, I don't mind. I let people talk, but there are times when I'm going to tell you that, hey, I got a guest on, or we want to get other callers in and whatnot. We're not trying to mute you or any way, but it's just I'm trying to get everybody in because I love everybody. I love all of y'all, right? So I want to get everybody into the show, and I like having you guys vent your spleen about anything in sports, but understand that, we're on time, we got breaks and all this other stuff. So, please try to respect that time as well. All right. We got Eric from West Philadelphia. Eric, what is on your mind, man? What's going on?
Hey, how you doing, Chris?
I'm okay.
The finals. I think that Dario Sarge was a big loss for Phoenix because they missed their scoring. And I don't trust the officiating with these finals. I mean, I saw some calls where the officials just seemed like they blew the calls on purpose and, the Bucks' favor. So I never did like the officials. I think they played too big a role in too many of the games. But when it comes to the Sixers, why is it that nobody put the blame where it's at? On the franchise. They've been doing this for decades. They've been drafting one or two good players and then try to build through free agents. We just went through a process of like 7 straight years of top picks. 4 of them top picks not even on the team. They didn't replace them with nobody. Now, if they would have drafted Tatum and kept Bridges, and when they traded for Buckets, we could have had Buckets on this team. We could have had, Tatum with Bridges. That would have been a much better team. And then you think about the creators that they just brought in, this team will be deep. They'll be in the finals right now and probably sweeping these guys. So
I would say, what? I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I do. If they had gotten Mikal Bridges, where is Zaire Smith now? Where he at? I was talking to my buddy Jack McCaffrey last night. We were talking about that at dinner. We were like, Mikal Bridges would have been a local favorite, and I think he would have fit better with this team than he does in Phoenix. He might have been a star here. He might have been an emerging star. And I think, at the end of the day, man, that's a guy you should have kept. Local favorite, Villanova. I mean, that's a guy you keep here. And I didn't understand that. I mean, you know, those who know more about basketball than I do might be able to explain that to you. But at the end of the day, you know, you're right. The process, Keith Pompey, my good buddy Keith Pompey, said the process didn't work. And
no, because they didn't have the scouts. Basically, they don't know how to evaluate talent. You drafting bust after bust after. Now, Sarge, he was good. He shouldn't have went top pick like he did. And then they had to wait a couple of years for him to come over. That was a wasted pick. They picking guys they could have gotten in the second round. It was all the hype of the media. These guys can't play that good. They was good in college, come to the pros. They good backup players. So I'm going to leave it there. You have a good day.
Thank you very much. And look at Drew Holiday. I mean, look at Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday's in the finals. Wow. I mean, he's in the finals. So, BG from Germantown. No, man. BG, what's happening?
I find it funny, this narrative now, that Giannis, you know, because he can't shoot free throws or shoot a jump shot, he's kind of a much better version of Ben Simmons. I know the analytic guys don't like him doing so well, but you know that he's not the top guy on the team. They're trying to say Middleton, which is ridiculous. It would kind of remind me, just because you're the best player on the team doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be the closer like LeBron or Jordan or Kobe. Like, Shaq was the best player, but, you know, Kobe was the closer. Karl Malone was the best player in Utah, but you wanted John Thompson to take the last shot. And I know you remember the Big E, Elvin Hayes. When they had their championship run, Bobby Dandridge was the guy who would shoot the clutch shot. You know, they wouldn't want Eric taking the last shot. So just because you're the best player doesn't mean you're going to be the best clutch player in the team. But Giannis is clearly the best player on that team.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Giannis, I mean, the thing about Giannis Antetokounmpo is I like the fact that this guy always tries to improve his game. I mean, here's the guy. He may not be where he might want to be, but I think that I don't mind when a guy sometimes just keeps. I mean, you know, Akeem Olajuwon. I remember watching Akeem Olajuwon from being a freshman with the University of Houston and how he grew. Remember how he grew into this dominant player? Because when he was coming up, you know, he had Clyde Drexler and I think was it Larry Young or somebody like that. That was, I forgot some of the guys on that team. But there were a lot of guys who were better than him, you know, during that run when the NCAA tournament. But then he goes into the pros. When they come out, I mean, everybody feels that, you know, Ralph Sampson was a better player and all that. He went beyond Ralph Sampson. He became a better player. He was a guy who worked, and that's the beauty. I rooted for Houston the years that, you know, when they won the finals, because to see Olajuwon develop into the great player that he did, that wasn't just because he had natural talent. That guy worked on his game. And if any big man coming into the league is smart, there are two guys you should consult: Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Akeem Olajuwon, or Akeem Abdul-Olajuwon, as he was called as a freshman. But those are guys that, you know, work on, and see, that's the importance. That's why I think many of us are frustrated with Ben Simmons, because, dude, you may not really work on your game. And that's the thing. I'm not asking. I for one, as a fan, I love the Sixers. I go back to Dr. J and them, even growing up in Baltimore. You know, the thing is, evolve your game. Ben Simmons doesn't have to be three-point shooting and all that. Just enough to, you know, keep you honest and hit your free throws. Even if he wasn't. I
think you're taking away. I think the one thing that you fail to realize, like you should be, you know, it seems like the fans don't want to face the one reality about the days. Akeem Olajuwon wasn't making $30 million a year. That you're not going to tell me that when a guy's got, and I'm happy to see the players get the money, but the incentive to get better is not as great when you're already getting generational wealth like that. It's just not. The fire is not in a lot of these guys. They are set for life. So when you're set for life, some guys, now it comes down to personal pride. And, a lot of them guys, I think, are very content with their situation. Ben Simmons looks very content with who he is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really believe that. I don't think, he'll tell you, hey, I'm a 3-time All-Star. I didn't even know he made the All-Star that many times, but the All-Star thing is bogus to me now anyway, because he's not an All-Star. You know what Ben Simmons is? I remember in Philly, Darryl Dawkins was here, and Darryl Dawkins made a career out of potential. Everybody's, one day, Darryl, and it never happened. Ben Simmons is Darryl Dawkins. He's okay player. I don't think he'll ever be a great player. I just don't believe that. And I met Darryl Dawkins. He's a very nice guy. He used to live in Summerdale when we lived in Lawrencetown. He'd buy us all ice cream. He was a nice guy. But Hal Cass told a story about Darryl Dawkins and why he traded him for Moses Malone. He said Darryl had a game where he had 20 points and 20 rebounds. And Hal Cass said he came up to him and said, Darryl, man, that was a great game. And he said Darryl Dawkins told him, yeah, don't expect that every night. And so after that, he said he knew he had to get Moses Malone because Darryl didn't have it in him.
Yeah, I remember Darryl Dawkins, and that was frustrating watching Darryl Dawkins because Darryl Dawkins, you're right, had a lot of potential. And one of the things, because I lived and died with the Sixers during those Dr. J years, I would just get mad when the Lakers, would run up and beat the Sixers. And I'm saying Darryl Dawkins, for all his backboard crashing, and all that, he always got into foul trouble. Remember that? He always was in foul trouble. He just did not. Him and Caldwell Jones, and I felt bad for both of them because I like both of them, but it was just that they just weren't at that level. They were good players, but they weren't great as you wanted them to be against the face of Bird, McHale, and the Chief and everything, and Kareem and Magic. They just weren't up to that level and everything. They weren't up to whether it was Robert Parrish, McHale, and Bird, or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, and all those other guys, James Worthy. You just had this feeling that Caldwell Jones and Darryl Dawkins just were not up to that level. And you wanted them to be, but the reality was that's why you brought in a Moses Malone, and the Sixers took off from there. But that was the thing that often bothered me about that team. But sometimes you got to go on. So I see the other side of that, because people tell me all the time, well, especially my man Maurice from Southwest, well, we shouldn't be looking at Ben as a superstar. And I think that there's a point to be made about that. So, that's how it is. BG, I think we got to go to break.
Okay, man, take care.
Thank you for the call. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we got to go to break because it's that time to go to break. But when we come back, please come on. We got enough open space for y'all to come on and say what you guys say. So you're listening to 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURD, the Chris Murray Report. We'll be right back.
The Sweet Treat Hut is the highest-rated juice bar in Philly, located on the corner of 50th and Thompson Streets, providing delicious, healthy vegan food, juices, and smoothies. Treat yourself to a cup of happiness. Call 215-877-1471.
Tune in Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. to hear Empire Capital and Consulting founder Mark Palmer's show titled Black Money, Black Power. This show centers around black money and how black power is derived from money. Tune in every Saturday from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Black Money, Black Power, hosted by Mark Palmer.
Family Therapy Vignette Moments with Dr. Lucille Ijoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, when you complete a job, you feel so much better. You'll sleep better, you'll feel satisfied, you may even cook a fancy meal and share it with a neighbor. When you complete a job, you will rest better and breathe. Breathe, everybody. Let me hear you breathe. Breathe again, breathe again. It's very important to breathe. Say, you have completed a job. Well, after the job is completed, it's time to dance. It's time to tap your feet. And you're going to listen to something called Shake, Rattle, and Roll by Joe Turner. Here it comes.
Shake, rattle, and roll. Shake, rattle, and roll. Shake, rattle, and roll. Shake, rattle, and roll. Well, you won't do right. Save your doggone soul.
Want the latest in Word swag? Check out the shop tab on WURDradio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on WURDradio.com. Show the world that you're all about black. Talk media. Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Independent black media.
We're back. Okay, so... All right, we got, before we got Fishman from University C, but I got to say one thing, though. What was I going to say? I wanted to actually talk about Tom. I thought that Tommy Hearns probably would have been the best fighter. I mean, I like Manny Stewart. If he had the Manny Stewart that helped Lennox Lewis become a better use of his jab, I think Manny Stewart evolved and worked and improved his teaching game. I think that Hearns should have been, because nobody ever outboxed Tommy Hearns. No one ever outboxed him. It's just that you had to go in and beat Hearns up, because Hagler did it, Leonard did it. Leonard tried to do it in the second fight, but couldn't. But you had to beat him up. But that's how good Hearns was. People don't give any credit to Tommy Hearns, but you know that's how good he was. We got Fishman from University City. What's happening, man?
Hey, man, I made it in. I just got back off the boat, so I'm feeling good. I got a few fish for the night.
What you catch today? What did you catch? You got some white catfish or what? What you got today?
No, black sea bass and humpback porgies.
Humpback porgies. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
They're about big as a hubcat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, anything the size of your hand, I throw back. So look at your hand, I throw that one back.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I give them a chance. I give them a chance to grow. I am a humanitarian.
Okay, I got you, man. Well, like I say, man, can you fry? You got to fry me sometime, man. I love me some fried fish.
And you know, our people, they only eat filet.
Oh, okay.
that means I gotta clean them. Scale them, and then I gotta fillet them, and then give them to people. And guess what? It's part of my enjoyment for real. Just to see it. Thank you so much, because you can't eat them all. So
that's true.
Like as we got older, I don't try to keep everything. For the night and tomorrow, and that'll be it. I did find the answer out from last week. Is America sending a men's boxing team to Tokyo? They only have 2 fighters. They have a heavyweight and a welterweight.
Yeah, and I think they also have a women's team. There's a couple of. I was looking on. Yeah, I was looking on that on their website because I was trying to find out who they were myself, and what's happened to amateur boxing, and I think I'm gonna do a segment on the show as we come closer to the Olympic Games, which start next week. The Olympics start next. Let's say they start next Friday, and.
Right. I ain't call you to hold you. I'm going to keep listening, and you keep doing what you do. Have a blessed day, Brother Chris.
Thank you. But that's the thing. I mean, amateur boxing, like I said, I talked to Bert Sugar about this, I want to say around 2007, 2008. And one of the things he told me, and this was like back then, maybe about 2007, 2008, we talked about the idea that guys like Ray Lewis aren't coming into, but the best athletes aren't coming into boxing. And yet, but on the one hand, I think he's right, especially at the heavyweight level. But I think maybe it's because of American upward mobility. I think Latinos are great fighters. There's still a lot of great black fighters in this country. Still a lot of great fighters in general. But our amateur program, I mean, we had one of the best in the world at one point, even at a time, because I remember back in '72 when Sugar Ray Seals, I don't know if anybody remembers, he fought Marvin Hagler. I don't know if anybody remembers Sugar Ray Seals. And Seals was like the only, in the Olympics in Munich, was the only guy who won a gold medal in boxing. People scrambled around back then. Oh my God, American amateur boxing is in trouble. Then you produce, one of the greatest teams. I still say even better than the 76 team was better than the 84 team, mainly because you included all the Soviet bloc fighters, although you had a lot of guys who were world champions out of the 84 team. I'm not going to sniff at them. But the amateur boxing thing has kind of gone down a little bit. I don't know. I want to go do further investigation. But what I talked about then was that a lot of the programs just, weren't developing great boxers. I mean, we were looking at that program to develop world champions. And I think, I'm going to look on there, but I don't know if the Fishman is right, but I'll double check. But they used to have teams, and it used to be to the point where you had USA versus the old Soviet Union, USA versus Cuba. And, to me, that was, that you had good fighters in that situation. But the problem now is that people aren't watching boxing as a sport anymore in the Olympics, which I'm disappointed at, because I love amateur boxing, but amateur boxing has some problems inherent in and of itself. Amateur boxing, sometimes the scoring is bad. I still remember Roy Jones Jr. getting robbed in Seoul, South Korea in 1988. I still remember when he fought a local favorite South Korean fighter, and the judges gave him, even though Roy Jones clearly dominated him, that was just a travesty. And a lot of times amateur boxing is political, because I remember in those old, in a lot of those Olympics, if an American fighter is fighting a boxer from the old Eastern Bloc, the old Soviet Russian bloc, they always gave it, if you had more judges on that, in that group that were from Eastern Bloc countries, the Eastern Bloc countries always won. And that may have been true from the American perspective as well. But still, it was just hard, because I remember as a fighter, I think his name was Reggie Jones, I want to say, back in 1972. He fought a Russian guy, and completely, I remember watching that fight. I was 10 years old, and I was mad, because I loved boxing even then. And this guy, he clearly beat the Soviet fighter, but because there were Soviet-Russian judges on the, judging that fight, they gave it to the Soviet guy. And the guy, he was on with Howard Cosell, and Howard Cosell was like, this is a travesty. This is just a terrible way. He was just going off on it, and I couldn't blame him. But amateur boxing, they have the scoring situation is messed up, the judging. Some of the judges are biased. They really need to clean, and I think it has affected the sport, at the amateur level in a profound way. People, they would keep scoring, and to me, I just think that what they needed to do was just adopt the pro rules. Just go ahead, trying to score punches electronically. There's more to it. Than just punches. I still say ring generalships, that stuff, even at the amateur level, should be competed. Okay, 215-634-8065, 1-866-361-0900. If you want to call in for any, we got about 6 minutes of airtime left. You want to call in and vent your spleen about just about anything right now. Couple of things though. We were talking about the Sixers and what they need to do. I don't think there's a quick fix for Ben Simmons. At least not in town. If he comes back, and I believe that somehow he's going to come back. Let's hope that he's improved his free throw shooting, at least his free throw shooting, and that he gets away from the hesitancy of taking the ball to the basket. Because if he can get that aspect down in his game, maybe he transforms himself and the Sixers into that team that goes to the finals. That's probably wishful thinking on my part. But, you know, if you can't get anything for him, it's going to be interesting. But whoever they trade him for, can they get something? I mean, Jordan, can they get something back good in return? Can they get something back? That's the thing that I worry about. Don't trade him for Magic Beans or a player named Magic Beans. But I don't know. I always make that joke. But don't trade him for, you know, for nothing. Get something that's going to be good and tangible that helps your team. Because at the end of the day, trades are kind of funny because I still remember the thing that built the Dallas Cowboys. The Vikings traded a bunch of draft picks and a bunch of guys.
Not that trade. Where they won.
Yeah. They gave the Cowboys, you know, all that they needed to build the Super Bowl dynasty. And Minnesota, and I know people in Minnesota, I've talked to some of their people up there, and they're still, you know, this is a franchise. The Vikings are still really, they lost 4 Super Bowls, and then they basically gave everything away to build that dynasty in Dallas and all that. And I'm sure they have to be pissed given the fact that there are certain cities that really hate the Cowboys. Philadelphia, L.A., and Minnesota.
49er fans, even Steeler fans. I know a Steeler fan who actually hates the Cowboys too.
Yeah, everybody hates the Cowboys, and you know I don't. You know, but the thing is that you know a lot of times when you can't give anything to a franchise that broke your heart. Now, you know, had the Cowboys have beaten my Colts in Super Bowl V, I might feel the same way. But I like that. I kind of like the Cowboys back in the day because I know the NFL from the '60s, and they had to fight Green Bay, and they had to shed off that label, and they were before they became America's team. You know, that I remember and I tell Cowboys fans, I remember y'all back in the '60s. I grew up. That's how I became a football fan. Okay, I remember the NFL in the '60s, even as a kid. I remember, you know, in my house, I don't think my father liked the Green Bay Packers and whatnot. Colts, yeah, I mean, in Colts history, and whatnot, fans remember there was a playoff game between the Colts and the Packers in Green Bay. And they remember a field goal that was actually like wide right, and the refs didn't call it. They called it good, sent the game into overtime. Had that field goal been missed, the Colts would have been playing for the NFL championship before pre-Super Bowl era. They would have been back. It would have been in Baltimore playing for the NFL championship. And the thing is they might have beaten the Browns. But well, we are at the end of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, it was always a pleasure. We had our guests on today. Thank our guests, Brandon Robinson and Joe Santaquito. Thank all of you guys for calling and supporting the show. It is, you know, we're coming on a weekend, so next week we'll continue the conversation. And you know, like I said, I hope you guys will call in, and we'll continue talking about things. The Olympics will be starting next week, and we'll be talking. I'm going to be scooping up somebody who will be covering the Olympics. More than like, you know, the show, we'll talk about what's going to be happening, track and field, gymnastics, and all those other things, all those other sports that we're interested in only at Olympic time, fencing and all this other stuff. So next week we will be back here talking the usual. Of course, all the social justice issues. I really wanted to get into the Richard Sherman thing. And I think at some point this year, I gotta find a local psychologist or something that can talk about mental health in sports. I think that's a great subject that we can talk about. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the denouement. We're at the end, and so we will see you next week on the Chris Murray Report on 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURD. please, ladies and gentlemen, support black media. We need your help. So we'll see you next week.